I've been working really hard the last few weeks on some massive projects that we have coming up on the channel. And you know the old adage, work hard, play hard. So I got to thinking, what would happen if I 3D printed some so-called toys out of the most extreme, toughest, lightest, and hardest to print engineering materials known to man? Materials like PA-CF, PPS-CF, and even PEEK. What ensued was a ridiculous amount of engineering grade fun, so much so that I just had to share it with all of you. And while I know that you guys typically don't care for 3D printed toys, I say to that two things. Number one, live a little, okay? And number two, as I quickly realized while building some of these, the word toys definitely does not do these projects justice. Along the way, I hope to give you some ideas, insights, and inspiration into some of the incredibly fun, rewarding, and educational projects that you can build with your own 3D printers. Oh, and depending on how many views this video gets, I'm actually going to be able to give away up to 2 brand new 3D printers and a handful of fun projects for you to do at home, including 2 FPV drones, 2 Gatling Gel Blasters, 2 hi-fi speakers, and 2 coffee grinders. So wake up your inner child, put on some safety glasses, and let's get after it. In order to facilitate this industrial level fun, we're going to be mostly using this pre-production version of an upcoming printer from this video's sponsor, Elyarchi, the Alcheman. And we're doing that for a number of reasons. First of all, while I have plenty of printers that can print things like PETG or ASA, and even a handful that can comfortably print PA-CF or PPS-CF, none of them can reach even close to the internal temperatures that this one can. And therefore, none of them can reach the strength with these engineering materials that ideally you want to have. That temperature, 90 degrees Celsius. Yes, 90. What's more, the hot end in this is rated for up to 450 degrees Celsius, which means that in addition to printing the most insane carbon fiber composites, this thing should also be able to print PEEK, Ultim, and more. Now, in addition to sending over the printer and an FPV drone kit, Elyarchi was kind enough to send over a 250-gram spool of PEEK, which, get this, costs $250. This stuff isn't cheap, and plus I did accidentally tear the silicone sock on this thing that I need in order to print those ultra high temperatures while I was swapping out a nozzle. So while we wait for the replacement parts in the mail, we are going to follow Elyarchi's own recommendations and gradually break in the machine using higher and higher temperature materials as we go. Wait a minute, me following a manufacturer's recommendations? I know, I can hardly believe it myself, but something about 450 degrees Celsius on a pre-production printer that still has a lot of MJF 3D printed parts, I feel like we should probably play it safe this time. So the first thing that I did was print the obligatory benchy in PLA just to check that off and make sure that the printer was running fine after shipping. It was, though I quickly realized that Elyarchi is one of those companies that is targeting print quality and strength instead of joining the super high-speed race that many other manufacturers are focused on, because the pre-sliced benchy took like 30 minutes or more, and it looked great. But immediately after getting that done, it was time to switch over to PETG and begin printing parts for the Cynthia 3D printed Nerf blaster by SillyButts. SillyButts. Now, the hardware kit for this build was provided to me free of charge by the folks over at Out of Darts, and I will link to them below if you would like to build one of these for yourself. Spoiler alert, you definitely will by the time this video is over. Now, as recommended by Elyarchi, I worked my way up, first printing the orange parts of the blaster in Prusament Orange PETG. Elyarchi did provide a bunch of profiles for Orca Slicer, including something that I actually haven't seen before. Separate print profiles for different materials. And I mean, not just filament profiles and then print profiles, but I mean different print profiles for each of the materials. I'm always complaining about manufacturers not providing enough profiles, especially before launch, So I'm definitely not going to look a gift horse in the mouth or question it, but I did think that it was very interesting of them to do things this way instead of using the material overrides. Now the PETG profile was honestly quite good, and when I tried to tweak it to extract a little bit more speed, I was disappointed with the results. So once I adjusted the Z offset, the built-in beacon bed leveling sensor did its thing, and everything printed out pretty much perfectly so long as I used their provided profiles. Here, again, I was reminded that Elyarchi is not focused on super speed with this machine, but rather on strength and print quality, which is fine. In fact, there are a lot of features of this printer that really make me think that it is targeting a much more prosumer or print farm client rather than your casual hobbyist. For example, the screen folds back into the body of the printer in case you want to make more room to stack these on shelves, or just to protect the screen from getting bumped in a print farm environment. The printer sits directly on the table as well, which means that it doesn't take up any additional vertical space with something like feet. And the filament, thankfully, loads from the top right as opposed to from the damn back. Thank you. Anyways, continuing to break in the machine with higher and higher temp materials, the next parts that I printed out were out of Polymaker's bright green ASA. Here again, the profiles were quite conservative, but they were spot on, though I am seeing a little bit of Z-banding and ghosting on my pre-production unit that I do hope to see resolved in the final production versions, which will have more injection molded parts. The parts are, though, incredibly strong, and as you will see during assembly, they are very, very dimensionally accurate. Now, while the printer was printing all of these parts out, I did decide to print a couple of parts, the front and rear grips, on a separate machine using Prusament's new matte black PETG, not because I actually believe that carbon fiber filament would actually cause any real harm to me or to my skin, but because they generally aren't as pleasant to handle as something like a PETG would be. And also I anticipated all the righteous comments that I would get if I used them for the grips. I actually chose the speed profiles on my Prusa printer, but speed and PETG do not mix, so I did end up reprinting them twice, finally caving and using the structural profile as opposed to the speed profile in order to get it strong enough to withstand the sheer forces of me cocking it back and doing the bolt action every single time. Finally, it was time to move up to more engineering grade materials. I started out by printing some of the black parts here in 3D X-Tex ABS glass fiber, which, despite looking surprisingly bumpy on the roll, prints absolutely beautifully and has a rich, darker black color than many of the carbon fiber blended materials that I've worked with before. I did decide to tweak the included ABS profile a little bit myself to increase the temperatures and slow down the flow rate to accommodate for the glass fibers, but overall, the parts turned out shockingly beautiful. It was at this point that I confirmed my original suspicions. There are some printers out there that are born to print PLA. Others are designed with PETG in mind. And still others, like Voron's, are really happiest when printing ABS. This printer clearly is born and bred to print engineering grade materials, particularly the carbon fiber and glass fiber ones. And I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, beyond the highly heated chamber and the 450C hot end, it literally only shipped with hardened steel nozzles, which y'all know I like. But once again, I digress and get distracted by the curiosity of a new printer from a new company that none of us have heard of. Getting back to the project, I then decided to go for broke, and I left the printer running overnight with some Sunlu PA-CF. Now, fortunately for me, I was able to print some of the larger parts, like the top Picatinny rails here, in one piece, thanks to the large 300 by 300 build volume of the Alcheman. Even though warping shouldn't be an issue with a chamber that heats as hot as this one, I did choose to use Magigoo's PA bed adhesion product just to be sure. And to ensure the best print quality of the actual filament itself, I also dried the filament while I was printing using Sunlu's E2 filament dryer running at 100 degrees Celsius. Now, you're probably sick of hearing me say this at this point in the video, but the print results were absolutely stunning, on par with what I consider to be the best printers on the market right now. This printer honestly prints carbon fiber nylon like some printers print PLA. I think it actually prints carbon fiber filaments even better than it printed the ABS and ASA filaments. Albeit, because they're carbon filaments, it does it slowly and conservatively. Obviously, this isn't a review, but I will let the results speak for themselves. Finally, it was time to assemble it, which I did over the course of 2 or 3 days. All in all, assembly took like 3, maybe 4 hours, and it was pretty well documented with a video. I say pretty well because I think we in the 3D printing world are really spoiled with very, very detailed, step-by-step and high contrast instructions of, say, a Voron or the ERCF, or the interactive web instructions of the box turtle that I've been building on live streams, which, by the way, subscribe if you want to see that video coming out pretty soon. Now, there were a few confusing steps, mostly because there are a lot of different options to choose from, and the video demonstrates assembling one, but tells you what you need to do differently if you assemble another. So I did kind of run astray at certain points, but I would say that anyone who can handle a screwdriver should be able to easily build one of these, and it is definitely easier than building a Voron or even building a Prusa kit. I did waste the better part of an hour, which I didn't include in my 3 to 4 hours, just trying to figure out why it wouldn't hold and catch or fire when I was trying to adjust the trigger. And eventually I realized that the video neglected to very clearly mention an entire part that needs to go in before you insert the plunger type. Don't worry about it. The bottom line is I forgot to put a part in because the video didn't very clearly specify it. So I guess if I had to give feedback to SillyButts or Out of Darts, who sells this kit, it would be that honestly investing in some PDF instructions with step-by-step kind of guide would be really, really useful, at least for people like me. And honestly, you could probably give the video to ChatGPT and have it kind of generate a baseline or something like that. Anyways, with the assembly done, let's take a moment to admire this beautiful monster and the engineering grade materials that went into it. But now, does it actually work? First attempt at a fire. Let's see how it works, if it works. I'm nervous. Do I push it back down? Oh, now I loaded too. Let's see what happens. Whoa, this is not an indoor toy. Okay, I think we have to take this thing outside, right? First things first, let's get a feel for how far this thing actually can shoot. Oh, we're gonna need a bigger parking lot, friends. Okay, you guys legit aren't gonna believe this. It's so far away that my camera's remote Wi-Fi function doesn't work. There's no way I'm gonna hit those cans, right? Yeah! Yeah! So, project number 1, check, which honestly is kind of a surprise. I'm used to projects taking 3 or 4 videos, not having 3 or 4 projects in one video. But I do have to say already, this has been super rewarding. It has been way more fun than I thought it was gonna be, and I love this thing way more than I expected to. Not only did I get a custom and personalized toy that is way more powerful and way more rugged than any kind of Nerf blaster you'd be able to buy in any store, but I also got a really, really fun project, which was much more manageable and lower commitment than many of the other projects that I do on this channel, like building a Voron or a multicolor unit. It also takes up a whole lot less space than a printer. I can almost guarantee that I will be building more of these in the future as soon as I can figure out how to get Out of Darts to ship directly to me in Israel. So comment below if you'd like to see videos of more of these builds. Or better yet, comment below if you'd like to see Zach Friedman and I in an all-out 3D printed Nerf blaster shootout. We could like auction off tickets for charity or something. All right, let's keep the admittedly uncharacteristic momentum going. Let's go ahead and see if we can fit in another project, shall we? Even if a lot of the parts for that project were printed on other printers, including a multicolor printer, because Elyarchi's own multicolor system isn't quite available yet, but apparently it is coming very soon. Now, you guys have probably seen or heard about these 3D printed Death Racer matches that Sam Prentice hosts at most of the RepRap festivals. And I had as well, but honestly, I never really took an interest in them because, as with all of my 3D printer builds, I honestly just don't have the patience or the time to self-source things like hardware, motors, and all of that for my projects. Fortunately for me and for all of you, BigTreeTech now offers a complete kit for the Death Racers with everything you need to build your very own, even the remote. Though here again, apparently LiPo batteries are an issue, so those aren't included. They were, however, kind enough to send over a few kits for me to build, and after building one at home with my 4-year-old son, I decided it was time to plan and build my own. Now, the whole idea with these Death Racers is to customize them, not just in terms of the colors, but also the material choice and also the accoutrements and custom features. Now, I purchased the main files for the Piranha, the kind of standard one from Offset on printables, but Sam Prentice was kind enough to send over all of his legacy files and designs, including the less popular Gravedigger, Catan, and Hammerhead front fairings, so that I could build a more custom Death Racer without needing to actually design my own. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but choosing this, the Gravedigger for me, and the Catan model for my son, I was definitely going off-piste, and that was going to lead to a lot of headaches and missing parts and really flying blind. So I did end up building most of this on a live stream. Make sure that you are subscribed and you ring the bell icon if you want to be notified when I go live. Then I also did, I think, 2 additional sessions just by myself here at the studio across a couple different days. And the reason I did that is so that I could focus on recording B-roll for all of you. So here is a gratuitous, ominously lit build montage with lots of bokeh. Enjoy. Now, I definitely have to say that the documentation, at least for the designs that are documented, the kind of main Piranha front fairing, is top-notch on these Death Racers. I mean, no, my 4-year-old could not have done it without me because it does require actually carefully reading, not just looking at the pictures like some other guides maybe. Ask me how I know. But like a Voron manual, it is extremely thorough, and there are very few opportunities for confusion as long as you go with the standard design and the standard weapon, and you actually read instead of just looking at the pictures. Again, ask me how I know. The guide or build manual does teach you how to build the base Piranha fairing, but if you want one of the other designs like I did, you're kinda on your own. The publicly available CAD model doesn't show these additional fairings, and there actually aren't even that many pictures online of completed ones to go off of, so you're kinda just gonna have to guess and figure it out. Fortunately, after me annoying and harassing poor Sam Prentice for weeks, he has assured me that he is in the process of doing a bunch more live streams to actually document all the various options. And designer Offset has let me know that he's working on getting the PDFs updated as well. So who knows, by the time you all see this, it might just be documented much better for those additional fairings as well. As for the BTT kits, as with all BTT products, the quality was unquestionable. They did a really nice job putting it together and the components look really, really well made. There were, however, a few pieces of hardware and not enough of other pieces, even to build the base Piranha version, but I did go ahead and notify them about all that. They're aware of it, and they are going to fix it in the next batch of kits. I also did figure out, much too late, by the way, that the front fairing that I'd chosen, again, the Gravedigger, is perhaps the least documented and the least photographed of all of them. And because it has actually an additional weapon up front, this flipper type thing, it does require an additional 2 25-kilo servos like the one used in the back weapon, and those are not included in the kit. And unfortunately, as it turns out, those are actually crucial for finishing and mounting the front because it is actually hanging off of those servos. So in the meantime, just to help move this project along and not get stuck, I did print out some dummy servos and servo brackets just until I can get some actual servos and swap those in. So if you do decide to build one of these, please do remember that you need to order those things separately. And also, I'm not quite sure how they're going to connect to the controller that BigTreeTech provided. I didn't think about that. Additionally, I will go ahead and recommend to BigTreeTech that when they update these kits to the V2, they should maybe consider offering some additional options on the product page to add those servos or add all the parts needed for the popular spinner mod and so on, because it really is a shame to go with such a well put together, well documented kit only to then realize that you have to self-source not just the battery, but also additional servos. And again, kind of the whole point of this thing is to express yourself and create and add different kinds of fairings and different kinds of weapons. So it would be nice if they took that into consideration. As for the build experience, I would definitely say that this is much more of an intermediate to advanced build. I did enjoy building this thing, but after building 2 of them between mine and my son's, I definitely think I'm going to need a long break before building another one for my youngest son. Not that it was hard, it was just significantly more complicated, more time-consuming, and a lot more involved than building, say, the Nerf blaster. In fact, I was actually surprised at how much work it does take to build one of these. Maybe akin to like a simpler 3D printer kit like a Prusa, but not quite as involved as like a Voron build or something like that. Now, I'm not sure how many hours ultimately it took, but I would estimate somewhere between 7 and 8. Though Sam did tell me that he's able to do one in like 3 hours, so definitely my hat's off to him. What's more, it is a lot more printing than you honestly think. There are a lot of pieces, and many of them do need to be printed in TPU, which prints slowly. Again, none of these are complaints, nor do I want to discourage any of you in any way from actually building one of these, because I personally was rather surprised at just how much printing and how much work people put into these things before taking them to rep festivals and just smashing them into one another. Now, just in case you're wondering, I printed mine in my long-standing favorite, which is Polymaker's ASA, and I used kind of a hodgepodge of half-used spools between Fiberon's PA-CF, Sunlu's PA-CF, and even some eSun PETG-CF. So kind of a lot of different carbon composites used on here. And I am hoping that the lighter weight of the carbon fiber materials will give me just a little bit of a leg up in competition. But honestly, just PLA or PETG is absolutely fine for these death racers. And you probably don't want to print these in such expensive materials if you're actually paying for the filament yourself. So this is a good time to mention that I appreciate you and love you, my beloved filament sponsors. On that note, I do also want to shout out to my buddy Printed Obsession for updating my 3D printed avatar so that I could reflect my new hairstyle and use my head as a base for customizing my own rider. I am very sure that there are some folks out there in the 3D printing community that will very much enjoy being able to knock an accurate looking head off of the Jonathan rider. Anyways, I'm going to shut up now. I've been talking for quite some time, and I will switch over to some shots showing you how the final thing turned out. Now, as you'll probably notice, it is not quite running yet. As I said, shipping LiPo batteries is apparently really tricky, and I was not able to get them in time for this video. And honestly, would it be a TNL video if everything went smoothly and all the projects actually got finished? But if you do want to see my Death Racer in action, make sure to come out and hang out with me at 3D Printopia in Amsterdam this May, where I will hopefully be able to actually fit this thing into one of my carry-ons. Dude, this is 2 finished projects in 1 video. So unlike me, and please don't get used to it. Now, I had planned to print out some peak parts for an FPV drone kit, the same kit that in a second we're gonna give a couple of away. But in addition to the LiPo batteries for both the drone and the Death Racers, honestly, a bunch of things didn't show up in time for this video, including the drone kit itself and the replacement silicone sock for being able to print peak on the printer. But I guess we're just going to have to do that project in an upcoming video, so make sure you're subscribed. Side note, I think the Israeli Customs Authority might be launching some kind of investigation to see if I'm doing something illegal here. I'm not, because lately they've been really incredulous when I tell them that there's no proof of payment or invoice, because all this stuff gets sent to me literally for free. And I can't say I blame them. Honestly, I don't believe it myself. Which on that note, have I mentioned just how much I appreciate you guys for watching these videos and making it possible for me to receive, build, and play with cool toys for a living? Seriously, if you had told me 4 years ago when I was running 2 different companies that I honestly hated and I was bored and uninspired and considering buying my first 3D printer as a creative outlet, that this would be my life and how I would soon spend my days, well, I would have been super excited, just like I am to come into work every single day now. So thank you guys, all nearly 200,000 of you. I just felt like I can't possibly say that enough. And to show that appreciation, I have worked with this video's sponsor, Elyarchi, to give away some amazing prizes as we approach 200,000 subscribers and as they launch their Kickstarter for this printer, which is linked below. So here's the deal. If this video reaches 40,000 views within the first 15 days, I'll be giving away one Alcheman 3D printer to one lucky winner from the comments below. If we hit 70,000 views within the first 15 days, we will give away one Alcheman, 2 FPV drone kits, including the VR headsets, 2 Gatling Gel Blaster kits, 2 hi-fi speaker kits, and 2 espresso coffee grinder kits as well. And on the unlikely chance that this video hits 100,000 views within 15 days, we will be giving away all of the above, plus one more Alcheman 3D printer for a total of 2. All you need to do to be eligible is comment below, and we'll be picking the winners at random. Just note that there is no way for us to email or message you here on YouTube, so we will be announcing the winners after 15 days on a community post here on YouTube and in our Discord channel. So do make sure that you are not only subscribed, but also that you have the bell icon selected so that you don't miss the announcement, because if you don't claim your prize within a week, it will go to someone else, just to be fair. Oh, and if you want to ensure that we hit those view goals, then you should probably like this video and consider sending it to a friend who might enjoy it as well. Good luck! And if you want to check out the Alcheman 3D printer and learn more about it, as well as the VU multicolor system that they are coming out with, it is launching live on Kickstarter, I think today, and there will be a link in the description for you to check it out. Anyways, that's all for this week, but I'll see all of you on the next layer.